Welcome to the session on dairying and mixed farming. First, let us get a brief introduction. A dairy is a business enterprise established for the harvesting of animal milk, mostly from animals such as cows or goats, but also from buffalo, sheep, horses or camels for human consumption. A dairy is typically located on a dedicated dairy farm or section of a multi-purpose farm that is concerned with the harvesting of milk. Terminology differs between countries. For example, in the United States, the entire dairy farm is commonly called a dairy. The building or farm area where milk is harvested from the cow is often called a milking parlor or parlor. The farm area where milk is stored in bulk tanks is known as the farm's milk house. Milk is then transported, usually by a truck, to a dairy plant, also referred to as a dairy, where raw milk is further processed and prepared for commercial sale of dairy products. In New Zealand, farm areas for milk harvesting are also called milking parlours and are historically known as milking sheds. As in the United States, sometimes milking sheds are referred to by their type such as herringbone shed or pit parlour. In some countries, especially those with small numbers of animals being milked, the farm may perform the functions of a dairy plant, processing their own milk into saleable dairy products such as butter, cheese or yogurt. This is on-site processing is a traditional method of producing specialist milk products which is common in Europe. A dairy can also be a place that processes, distributes and sells dairy products, or a room, building or establishment where milk is stored and processed into milk products such as butter or cheese. Singular use of the word dairy almost exclusively refers to a corner shop or superette. This usage is historical as such shops were a common place for the public to buy milk products. As an attributive, the word dairy refers to milk-based products, derivatives and processes, and the animals and workers involved in their production. For example, dairy cattle, dairy goat. A dairy farm produces milk and the dairy factory processes it into a variety of dairy products. These establishments constitute the global dairy industry, a component of the food industry. Now coming to the history of dairy farming. Milk producing animals have been domesticated for thousands of years. Initially, they were part of the subsistence farming that nomads engaged in. As the community moved about the country, their animals accompanied them. Protecting and feeding the animals were a big part of the symbiotic relationship between the animals and the herders. In the more recent past, people in agricultural societies owned dairy animals that they milked for domestic and local consumption, a typical example of a cottage industry. The animals might serve multiple purposes. For example, as a draught animal for pulling a plough as a youngster, and at the end of its useful life as meat. In this case, the animals were normally milked by hand and the herd size was quite small, so that all of the animals could be milked in less than an hour, about 10 per milker. These tasks were performed by a dairy maid or dairyman. With industrialization and urbanization, the supply of milk became a commercial industry with specialized breeds of cattle being developed for dairy as distinct from the beef or draught animals. Initially, more people were employed as milkers, but it soon turned to mechanization with machines designed to do the milking. Historically, the milking and the processing took place close together in space and time on a dairy farm. People milk the animals by hand on farms where only small numbers are kept. Hand milking is still practiced. Hand milking is accomplished by grasping the tits in the hand and expressing milk either by squeezing the fingers progressively from the udder end to the tip and then moving the hand downward from the udder towards the end of the tit. In 1937, it was found that bovine somatotropin, that is BST, or bovine growth hormone, would increase the yield of milk. Monsanto Company developed a synthetic recombinant version of this hormone denoted as rBST. In February 1994, rBST was approved by the Food and Drug Administration, that is FDA, for use in the US. It has become common in the US but not elsewhere to inject it into Milchkind dairy cows to increase their production by up to 15%. However, there are claims that this practice can have negative consequences for the animals themselves. Now next, coming to the operation of the dairy farm. When it became necessary to milk larger cows, the cows would be brought to a shed or barn that was set up with bales, that is stalls, where the cows could be confined while they were milked. One person could milk more cows this way, as many as 20 for a skilled worker. As herd size increased, there was more need to have efficient milking machines, sheds, milk storage facilities, that is vats, bulk milk transport and shed cleaning capabilities, and the means of getting cows from paddock to shed and back. Most dairy farmers milk their cows with absolute regularity at a minimum of twice a day, with some high producing herds milking up to 4 times a day to lessen the weight of large volumes of milk in the udder of the cow. This daily milking routine goes on for about 300 to 320 days per year that the cow stays in milk. Some small herds are milked once a day for about the last 20 days of the production cycle, but this is not usual for large herds. Farmers who are contracted to supply liquid milk for human consumption, as opposed to milk for processing into butter, cheese and so on, often have to manage their herd so that the contracted number of cows are in the milk the year round, or the required minimum milk output is maintained. This is done by mating cows outside their natural mating time, so that the period when each cow in the herd is giving maximum production is in rotation throughout the year. Northern Hemisphere farmers who keep cows in barns almost all the year usually manage their herds to give continuous production of milk so that they get paid all year round. In the Southern Hemisphere, the cooperative dairying systems allows for 2 months on no productivity because their systems are designed to take advantage of maximum grass and milk production in the spring, and because the milk processing plants pay bonuses in the dry or winter season to carry the farmers through the midwinter break from milking. It also means that cows have a rest from milk production when they are most heavily pregnant. Some year-round milk farms are penalized financially for overproduction at any time in the year by being unable to sell their overproduction at current prices. Artificial insemination is common in all high production herds. Now next coming to the industrial processing. Dairy plants process the raw milk they receive from farmers so as to extend its marketable life. Two main types of processes are employed, that is the heat treatment to ensure the safety of milk for human consumption and to lengthen its shelf life, and dehydrating dairy products such as butter, hard cheese and milk powders so that they can be stored. Now let us take a look into the various dairy products. First comes cream and butter. Today, milk is separated by huge machines in bulk into cream and skim milk. The cream is processed to produce various consumer products depending on its thickness, its suitability for culinary uses and consumer demand, which differs from place to place and country to country. Some cream is dried and powdered, some is condensed and canned. This is done by churning the cream until the fat globules coagulate and form a monolithic mass. This butter mass is washed and sometimes salted to improve keeping qualities. The residual buttermilk goes on to further processing. The butter is packaged and chilled for storage and sale. Now next comes skimmed milk. The product left after the cream is removed is called skim or skimmed milk. To make a consumable liquid, a portion of cream is returned to the skim milk to make low-fat milk that is semi-skimmed for human consumption. Now next is casein. Casein is the predominant phosphoprotein found in fresh milk. It has a very wide range of uses, from being a filler for human foods such as in ice cream to the manufacture of products such as fabric, adhesives and plastics. Now the next dairy product is cheese. Cheese is another product made from milk. Whole milk is reacted to form curds that can be compressed, processed and stored to form cheese. And next is whey. In earlier times, whey or milk serum was considered to be a waste product and it was mostly fed to pigs as a convenient means of disposal. Beginning from 1980, lactose and many other products, mainly food additives, are made from both casein and cheese whey. Next product is yogurt. Yogurt making is a process similar to cheese making, only the process is arrested before the curd becomes very hard. Waste disposal from the dairy industry. In countries where cows are grazed outside year round, there is little waste disposal to deal with. The most concentrated waste is at the milking shed, where the animal waste is liquefied, that is during the water washing process, and allowed to flow by gravity or pumped into composting ponds with anaerobic bacteria to consume the solids. The processed water and nutrients are then pumped back onto the pasture as irrigation and fertilizer. In areas where cows are housed all year round, the waste problem is difficult because of the amount of feed that is brought in and the amount of bedding material that also has to be removed and composted. In the associated milk processing factories, Most of the waste is washing water that is treated usually by composting and returned to waterways. In dairy intensive areas, various methods have been proposed for disposing of large quantities of milk. Large application rates of milk onto land or disposing in a hole is problematic as the residue from the decomposing milk will block the soil pores and thereby reduce the water infiltration rate through the soil profile. As recovery of this effect can take time, any land-based application needs to be well managed and considered. Now coming to the next half of the session, which deals with mixed farming. First, let us understand what is mixed farming. Mixed farming is one which crop production is combined with the rearing of livestock. The livestock enterprises are complementary to crop production so as to provide a balanced and productive system of farming. In mixed farming, at least 10% of its gross income must be contributed by livestock activity, the upper limit being 45% under Indian conditions. So, the farm on which at least 10 to 49% income is found from livestock is called as a mixed farm. In mixed farming, cow and buffaloes are included with crop production. If farmers are rearing cows, buffaloes, sheep, goat and fisheries with crop cultivation, this type of farming is also called as diversified farming. The scope of mixed farming to combination of crops and their complementary livestock enterprises of mixed farming would certainly include a vast majority of our farms establishing a complementary relationship between crop and livestock enterprises. Now let us take a look into some of the advantages of mixed farming. It offers highest return on farm business as the byproducts of farm are properly utilized. It provides work throughout the year, efficient utilization of land, labor, equipment and other resources. The crop byproducts such as straw, bus, fodder, etc. is used for feeding of livestock and in return they provide milk. Manures available from livestock help to maintain the soil fertility. It helps in supplying all the food needs of the family members. Intensive cultivation is possible. If one source of income is lost, he can maintain his family from the other source of income. Milk cattle provide draft animals for crop production and rural transport. And finally, mixed farming increases the social status of the farmer. In India, the livestock is much closely connected with agriculture because animal power is the main source of power in agriculture. Farmyard manure, which is FYM, is the main source for maintaining soil fertility, and animals make good use of subsidiary and byproducts on farms, and in turn they provide milk under such circumstances. Mixed farming will most suit in Indian conditions. Now coming to the disadvantages of mixed farming. Indigenous method of cultivation is used till now. Draft and milch animals should be sold when they fail in production, and healthy calf should be reared to replace age-old animals. Now what are the requirements of mixed farming? It requires complicated management practices, sound cropping scheme, good cattle in suitable number, transport facility and marketing facilities. Now coming to the evolution of the mixed farming system. Mixed farming is probably the most benign agricultural production system from an environmental perspective because it is at least partially a closed system. The waste products of one enterprise, that is crop residues, which would otherwise be loaded onto the natural resource base, are used by the other enterprise, which returns its own waste products such as manure back to the first enterprise. Because it provides many opportunities for recycling and organic farming and for a varied, more attractive landscape, mixed farming is the favorite system of many agriculturalists and environmentalists. In many situations, crop and livestock production is largely in balance with nature. There are important exceptions such as some mixed farming systems of the tropical highlands of Asia and Central Africa, which partly because of overgrazing are amongst the most eroded and degraded systems of the world. On the other end of the development spectrum, heavy use of feed and fertilizer in the industrial world and in some of the fast growing economies of East Asia has led to nutrient loading, habitat destruction and water pollution. In this context, it has to be remembered that integrating crops and livestock neither generates new nutrients, that is with the exception of nitrogen fixation by leguminous plants, nor reduces nutrient surpluses. Environmentally, mixed farming systems help to maintain soil fertility by recycling soil nutrients and allowing the introduction and use of rotations between various crops and forage, legumes and trees, or for land to remain fallow and grasses and shrubs to become re-established. And also maintain soil biodiversity, minimize soil erosion, help to conserve water and provide suitable habitats for birds. Make the best use of crop residues. When they are not used as feed, stalks may be incorporated directly into the soil where for some time they act as a nitrogen trap, exacerbating deficiencies. In the tropical semi-arid areas, termite action results in loss of nutrients before the next cropping season. Burning, the other alternative, increases carbon dioxide emissions and allow intensified farming with less dependence on natural resources and preserving more biodiversity than would be in the case if food demands were to be met by crop and livestock activities undertaken in isolation. The challenge for the mixed farm sector is to maintain a nutrient and energy equilibrium through crop livestock integration and at the same time allow sustainable productivity growth. The mixed farming system, more than any other production system, operates under a wide range of environmental and economic conditions and requires regional solutions and practices. However, there is one overriding criteria in determining the size and nature of the system's impact on the environment, and this is the nutrient balance. This balance is determined by the nutrients N, P and K, that is nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, being brought into the farming systems by inorganic fertilizer, feed, nitrogen fixed by leguminous plants and transfer from grazing areas outside the farm, and the amounts exported in animal products or lost from the land to the air or groundwater. A positive balance of nutrients will have a completely different effect than a nutrient deficient system. In this analysis, the mixed farming systems are classified either as nutrient deficient systems, which occur mainly in the developing world, or as nutrient surplus systems, mostly found in the industrialized world and increasingly in the fast-growing economies of East Asia. Now finally, coming to the summary. Let us summarize our learning in this session. A dairy is a business enterprise established for the harvesting of animal milk, mostly from animals such as cows or goats, but also from buffaloes, sheep, horses or camels for human consumption. A dairy is typically located on a dedicated dairy farm or section of a multi-purpose farm that is concerned with the harvesting of milk. We also learnt about various dairy products, its processing and manufacture, along with the disposal of dairy waste. Mixed farming is one in which crop production is combined with the rearing of livestock. The livestock enterprises are complementary to crop production so as to provide a balanced and productive system of farming. The scope of mixed farming to combination of crops and their complementary livestock enterprises of mixed farming would certainly include a vast majority of our farms establishing a complementary relationship between crop and livestock enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you.